sins all too often can gain such hold on us that when told that we are to die to sin, lest we die from sin, we have to pause and contemplate which scenario would be worse. That's the way it was with Lot. I've often wondered how in 2 Peter calls Lot righteous Lot, because rarely do we ever see Lot doing something that we would consider to be righteous. He is getting ever closer to Sodom. He has a problem with Abraham. He then becomes selfish, desires all the good land. He goes then into that good land, pitches his tent towards Sodom, gets close to Sodom, moves into Sodom. And what we see today, he is actually at the gate of Sodom. He is one of the rulers there in Sodom. You're like, where is the righteousness that Peter sees in Lot? I've always wondered that, and then it has finally occurred to me. First, righteousness, or being righteous, being in the state of righteousness, is just that. It is a state of being. We are declared righteous by God. We do not do anything to be declared righteous except believing, right? So Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteous. So here is Lot, in the same way, believing, and thus being counted as righteous. And so the better that I understand righteousness, the better I understand God's mercy and God's grace, the better I understand why it is that Peter has actually called Lot righteous Lot. He is a righteous man. He is not guilty because of his faith, even though there are times where he does not live according to his faith. Now, raise your hand if there has never been a time in your life where you have not lived according to your faith. In other words, that's in the negative. So in other words, raise your hand if there's ever been a time, or if you've spent your entire life living up to what you say you believe. Okay? So we can't expect a whole lot more from Lot than what we have expected from ourselves. There are times in his life that he did not live up to what he declared he believed, and yet his faith is what counted it to him as righteous, not his actions. There are a lot of things that Lot did wrong, many sins that he's committed, but his faith was still in God. And because of that, we can see, if you want to go there, you can, but it's going to be up there for just this one. 2 Peter 2:8. Is that righteous man lived among them day after day, who was tormenting his righteous soul over their lawless deeds that he had saw and heard. So as we get into Genesis chapter 19, we kind of read the background story. We're really going to be dealing with really two verses. Well, I say that. My focus is going to be on two verses, but we're going to have to go through the background in order to get and understand those two verses here. Right? But as we see just a little bit more, just having read that in Genesis chapter 19, we probably can understand why it is that Lot, who has faith in God, who believes in God, also at this moment in time, and probably for as long as he lived in Sodom, was tormenting his own soul by what he was seeing and what he was hearing. There are probably times that he desired some of maybe the same things. Whether or not he gave into those things or not isn't the issue. That there's probably just some of the desires, those temptations there, and he hates the fact that he has those temptations to desire what the men and the women of Sodom desired. He was tormenting his own soul. You could also, actually, technically, you could translate that as torturing his soul. So maybe you understand what that's like, having a tormented, a tortured soul. Maybe Lot was possibly missionary dating Sodom, right? I mean, he just kind of moves in there so he can have a good influence on them. I can just have a good influence. That'd be great. Maybe I can influence the people around me. Well, okay, I didn't really influence the people around me so much, but maybe I could become, one of their leaders, one of their governing authorities, one of their judges, and sit in the gates, and maybe then I can influence people around me and such. That obviously didn't happen. Instead, he's the one who got influenced by the people. So it's easy to see why he would be tormented. Why he would tormenting his righteous soul. And unlike the people of Sodom, Lot didn't allow his passions to dominate him. But he was susceptible to failure. At times, probably, that he said yes to his passions. At times, that he said no, and he denied his passions. Because the spirit is willing, right? But the flesh is weak. So as we look at Genesis 19, I want us to focus mainly on 2 verses, 15 and 16, but we're going to, like I said, go through the background here. So I'll say this. Because I'm a good Baptist preacher, I've got 3 points. They're all alliterated. The first point, though, is going to be by far the longest point, because it's going to be dealing with the background. Okay? So by the time you get done, you're going to be like, holy cow, I hope his next 2 points are not that long. And I promise you they are not. Okay? I think it's the first 6 pages are my first point of my sermon, and then the last 2 points are about a page each. Okay? So, just throwing that out there so that you don't get too concerned. But as we go through, there are 3 points. Warning, and then waiting, and then resting. The warning, the waiting, and the resting. The first thing we see is, obviously, this warning. So look at it back at verse 15. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Up! Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away, and the punishment of the city." Punishment's imminent here, right? There's no surprise here. Why? Because the city of Sodom has done some really, really bad, evil, wicked things against God and against each other. I mean, this is probably like, you guys are not surprised, right? Most people are not surprised when we talk about a warning against the destruction of Sodom. We understand that. Even secular people understand the idea of sodomy, which comes from, obviously, Sodom and Gomorrah. They understand that. They understand that there is some type of wickedness that's going on. There's some type of wrong that has been happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. And so these people are going to be destroyed if things don't turn right. Of course, they will not. But Moses, in recording what has happened, reveals to us the extent of that evil that Sodom and Gomorrah had fallen into. They had fallen to such an extent that they didn't care about their sins. They didn't care what they were doing. That's where Lot differed, because he did care. He was tormented over these things. He absolutely cared. And we see this in the first couple of verses, what's going on. So let's go real quick. First, verses 1 and 2. The 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. That's that gate of judgment, right? That people go there, they're trying to figure out how to order their lives, or they've got an argument with somebody, and they go. So he's sitting in the gate. There is a judge, which is why we see later on, they were like, "Oh, you're the judge now," right? Because she was. Sitting at the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way." So Lot sees these 2 angels coming. They're strangers to the land. Whether or not he knew that they were angels or not isn't the point. He saw these 2 strangers coming, and immediately he bows down to them and he invites them to his home to stay. Now, while hospitality is important back then, and it still is in the Middle East, and it should be with us, we've been commanded to be hospitable, but while it is important to be hospitable, we can tell by what he is saying and the way that he is saying this, that he is concerned for the strangers that have entered into the land. He does not want them to see what Sodom is. And so he immediately assumed, before they can even get through the gate, hey, why don't you guys come stay at my house for a little bit? He understood that the men of Sodom, what the men of Sodom were capable of doing, and he did not want the strangers, these angels, to receive that. He was being very protective. He knew, this is key, he knew the ways of his city, and he was ashamed and fearful. Notice that Lot wanted to get the men out of his house also as quickly as he could. This is not being hospitable. Right? When somebody comes to stay at your house, you don't start making plans. When are you going to leave? Right? You don't do that. Why don't you guys come, stay at my house, you can rest a little bit, wash your feet up a little bit, go to sleep, and then get up. You can get up early in the morning, and you'll be on your way. Before anybody sees you, before you see anybody, before you see the decadence of all that's going on, just go. You can go on. No, he doesn't say that because he's ashamed. He doesn't want to. He's just like, hey, let's go. Let's get you in, and let's get you out. He's ashamed. And before they ever accepted his offer, he politely says they can leave. And when they decline his offer, no, that's okay. He pounces on them. Right? We just rather stay in the square. That's fine. He pounces on them. Go back again. Right? Look at the end of verse 2 and going into verse 3. They said, no, we will spend the night in the town square. But he pressed them strongly. He pressed them strongly. So they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread. And they ate. He pressed them strongly. The mental image that we should get there is again pouncing or lunging at them, right? Maybe you've seen the idea where you're so adamant about them not leaving that you almost tackle them, right? You wrap your arms around them, and they're like looking at you like, what in the world are you doing? And you just kind of smooth out their robes a little bit and say, no, I insist you must stay with me. Come on. That's what he's doing. The reason I say that is because of later, the same word is used later when the men almost break the door down. They press strongly on Lot, almost breaking the door down. He is adamant. Do not go into the square. Do not stay out here. I insist you come. And then he makes a feast, bakes unleavened bread. Not because it's a holy time. Originally, unleavened bread was basically when you didn't have time. You didn't want to take the time for bread to rise. Let's get you fed. Let's get you washed up. Let's get you to bed. Right? It's kind of like Christmas time for kids. Right? The sooner you get to bed, the sooner Santa Claus is going to come. Right? The sooner you get your presents, kind of thing. Let's get you fed, let's get you bathed, and let's get you into bed, and then you wake up early in the morning and get out of here before you ever realize what's going on here in Sodom. Before you ever fall victim to anything that's happening here, right? I mean, can you see yourself in the story? Because I can. When God comes to me, I don't want to get off that Chandler-ish, right? But when God sends maybe somebody or whatever, and comes at me and confronts me, or he's about to confront me, and I know that he's about to confront me in my sin, what do? I pretend like it's not even there. I hide it and sweep it under the rug and do something that I have to. I turn the right, like the woman at the well, right? I turn the conversation around. Let's not go there, God. Let's pretend like everything is fine. Let's have a little feast here, but let's get you out of here as fast as we possibly can. Because I don't want you stepping on my sin. I don't want you seeing the stuff that I do. The thing is that he's already sinned. Right? I mean, that is clear from what we see later on with the angels. And if you go into chapter 18, go back a chapter, when God is speaking to Abraham, and he's saying, I'm going to Sodom to destroy it because the outcry of their evil, their wickedness, has come up before me. He already knows the sin and Lot and us. And he's just me, like an idiot, pretends like it just isn't even happening. Nothing to see here. Go on your way. For Lot, as we find out, and as we are not careful, we will find out for ourselves, learns the lesson of Numbers 32:23 that says there, be sure your sins will find you out. I'm not saying that Lot was anything like the men of Sodom. Like I said earlier, he was adversely affected by the men. Look at verse 4 and 5 here. Verses 4 and 5. But before they lay down, so it's fairly fast, right? Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man surrounded the house. And by the way, we need to understand something here. This is just a side note, but the men of the city, not the women. This is men. Specifically men here. Men are intended, not people. Okay, this is strictly talking about the men of the city. They're there. They're surrounding the house, and they call to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them. Lot, there's somebody at your door. Oh, no, there's somebody there. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and eat. Continue to eat. Eat on it. Men! Bring them out here! We want to know them! Lot, I'm pretty sure somebody's knocking at your door. Excuse me, one minute. Just give me that. You guys just keep eating. Don't worry about me. I'm just going to do what I want. Guys, what are you doing? You're messing everything up. There's a reason that I told them not to go into this way, to come to my house. Why are you even coming? Give us a man! Guys, tell you what. You can't have they're my guests. You don't know what you're asking. I'll tell you what. Why don't you have my daughters? They never know a man. Rape them all you want. Do with them whatever you want to do. That's what Lot's saying. But what in the world? I can try and pretend like nothing is happening, but something is going on. And you and I can try to pretend like hey, everything's great. No, nothing to see here. All is fine. Just keep on eating your dinner. We'll get you out of here soon. But it's nothing that we can pretend about. It's happening. That sin is pounding at the door. Begging to be seen. Wanting to flaunt itself. You hear it. God hears it. There's no denying that it's happening. The question really is this. This is the question. Will you confront it? Will you open the door and confront yourself? Lot musters up that strength. He confronts the people, confronts the sin that is knocking at his door. Verses 6 through 8. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, brothers, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters that have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men. They have come under the shelter of my roof. Not hard to see how he was personally affected by the men of Sodom. You can't have the men, but by all means take my daughters. We need to have this be a lesson for us. Because the men said, no, we will not have your daughters. Sin will not allow half-hearted, half-measured efforts to be satisfied. Sin is not to be trifled with. It's not to be bargained with. We don't compromise with sin. John Owen once wrote this. He says, "Let no man think to kill sin with a few easy or gentle strokes. He who hath once smitten a serpent, if he follow not on his blow until it be slain, may repent that he ever began the quarrel. So he who undertakes to deal with sin and pursues it not constantly to death." Guys, you can't have the men. Let's compromise. You can have my daughters. And what was their response? We will have the men, and we will do worse to you than we will to them. He smacked that snake, but he did not kill it. And the snake comes back, seeking to kill him. That's what we see. Verse 9, right? Verse 9 right here. He says, "But they said, 'Stand back!' And they say, 'This fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them.' And they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down." Half-measured, half-hearted, compromising trifles are never enough when dealing with sin. It's kill or be killed. As John Owen said, be killing sin or it will be killing you. There's that phrase, pressed hard. I like how the NLT translated it because they get the full scope of it. It's just like, oh goodness, they're kind of pressing in on me a little bit. Better back up a little bit. Better be lunged at. That's how the NLT describes it. They lunged at him. They wanted to tackle him, have their way with him, kill him, and get to the men. That's what they wanted. Half-hearted measures don't work. And at this point, the angels pull their host back, or pulls them back in and strikes the men with blindness. They tell Lot that they're about to destroy Sodom. And if they do not get everybody out that they possibly can get out, they too will be destroyed. That's the first warning that we see. We are going to destroy this. Get everybody out. So he goes to his sons-in-law, the ones who are supposed to marry his daughters, right? That whole betrothal thing, like Joseph and Mary, right? Married but not yet married, kind of thing, right? You guys have got to go. God's going to destroy Sodom. Just kidding. You really shouldn't be kidding about things like this. So he goes back empty-handed, goes back to his home empty-handed because he has no credibility apparently with anybody to let them know that God is serious about their sin and that they need to leave before God destroys. He gets back in the morning, right? And so we see, and this is where we come in verse 15. As the morning dawned, right? About the time that he wanted the angels to leave, the angels were not telling him to leave. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Up! Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city." That's a second warning. Punishment's imminent. There's no time to waste. Get out of here. Understand that we must flee from our wickedness immediately. Get up! Run! Run as fast as you can! Because the judgment, the promise of judgment is assured. It's coming. John Piper is putting out articles based on this acronym called ANTHEM that he uses. ANTHEM, how to defeat lust within you or defeat sin even within you. Because all sin is of some type of lust, a lust for this or a lust for that. He came up with this acronym ANTHEM to help us remember it. And so I want to go over really the two first ones, because that deals more with what we're talking about today. But I would absolutely tell you to get online, get on desire.org, and look at ANTHEM and learn from this, because I think they're just so good. A, avoid all possible temptation. Avoid all possible temptation. Jesus said, right, that if your right hand causes you to stumble, if it causes you to sin, what do? You cut it off. If your right eye causes you offense, what do? You cut it off, or you pluck it out, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You avoid the temptation if it's at all possible, even going to the extremes if necessary. So if you need to cut off the internet, yes, this word lives on the internet. But if you need to cut it off to get yourself out of sin, cut it off. If you need to throw away your television, do it. If you need to quit your job, do it. If you need to trade your smartphone in for a dumb phone, do it. Don't hesitate. If it is a temptation to you, and you can avoid that temptation, avoid it at any cost. And then N. This is one really I want to focus on, even though I'm going to say very little about it at the moment. No. Say no. Piper says basically that we have about 5 seconds to tell our temptation no before it lodges itself in our minds and in our hearts. You don't do it immediately, it's not probably going to happen. Because now all of a sudden, that's all you can think about. Now all of a sudden, that's all you desire. You have 5 seconds. The moment it pops into your head, say no. Say no. Do not delay. Do not hesitate. Do not linger. Say no. T, turn your eyes toward Christ. H, hold on to a promise from God. E, enjoy Jesus more than sinful pleasure. M, move away from idleness and find something to do. Because as we all know, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. The warning's true. Judgment and punishment is coming. And it could be at any moment. We have convinced ourselves it won't be. But it could be. We are assured that as every second goes by, we are 1 second closer to punishment. Say no to me. Don't hesitate. Don't linger. In other words, don't be like Lot. We see in this very next verse, these are horrifying, awful, and yet so relatable words. Verse 16. But he lingered. I think the whole chapter, all of chapter 19, hinges on these 3 words. But he. What? Get your family out of here! We don't know how long out the judgment. Get them gone. Go. He doesn't move. He wasn't terrified. He wasn't like frozen with terror or anything like that. Like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to go. He was having an inner turmoil. He was having an inner struggle here. That's what it means. He lingered. That's really what the word is getting at. He had this inner turmoil so that he's like, should I go? Should I not go? Remember what Peter said about him? He was tormenting his righteous soul over their lawless deeds. He saw and heard. Stay. Go. Live or die. Kill sin or have sin kill me. Like what? Sins can gain such a hold of us. And when told we are to die to sin, lest we die from sin. We pause to contemplate. Which scenario is worse? Can I live without my sin? Or would it just be better to die in my sin? There's a lot of people here, maybe all of us, in some way, in some degree or another, that are waiting. You'll get to dealing with your sin eventually. In time, too much is going on right now. You get to it when there's more time. You get to it when you're able. You get to it when you're stronger. New Year's is a good time, right? Got New Year's resolutions. We'll get to it every New Year's. Maybe some of us aren't waiting that long. We'll just get to it Monday. Monday's a good time to start. You won't deal with your sin. You're waiting. You're dealing with the sin problem. There's something going on inside of you. There's torment. There's trouble. There's torture. But you won't deal with it. You linger. Hesitate. And wait. Sin is not the only thing that kills. We need this too. We're not just talking about sexual sin here. All sin kills. Right? For the wages of sin is what? Death. And some of you are dealing with sexual sin, and some may be dealing with the sin of anger, or some of you may be dealing with the sin of lying, or some of you may be dealing with the sin of disbelief, and you're just waiting. I'll get to it. You are in torment. Because you know it needs to be dealt with, but you don't want to deal with it yet. And you linger over your sin. Here's the same thing. God's not going to let you linger very long if you're his child. We're going to go the rest of verse 16. So the men seized him and his wife and his two daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. Now that you notice, this is a very violent story. Probably one of the most violent stories in Scripture. We've kind of just been kind of like, whatever. We've been sanitized to it, right? We've been, what's this word? Desensitized to it. I mean, first, from the very beginning, right? The angels come in and Lot nearly tackles them because he's so scared about what they're going to do. And so he brings them into this house, and he's out there, right? And then the people are pounding at his door, wanting to rape the men that came to see him. And he goes out there to try to reason with them and to try to give half-hearted measures to them. And then they press on him. They tackle him. And then they nearly break the doors down. And then the angels, right, they blind the men. And then they snatch Lot in. And then they blind the men, right? And then here they are, grabbing Lot, his wife, his 2 daughters. And they are dragging them just about out of the city. It's very violent story. Not to mention, at the end, the fire and the brimstone coming down on Sodom. It's very violent. That idea of seizing there, the idea of wrenching their arms out of their sockets, pulling them, grabbing them hard, severely, pull them out of the sea. Here's the gospel. Remember, this is the genesis of the gospel. Finally got to the gospel. Because why? Why did the angels snatch them by the arms and drag them out from the sea? If we're not careful, we miss it. It's right in the middle of the verse. The Lord was being merciful. The Lord was being merciful. I mean, think about it. If it was me, right, and I got to play God for just like 5 minutes, I'd be like, leave their tails and Sodom for all I care. They don't care about me enough. They don't care about their own righteousness enough. They won't leave. They're so addicted. Leave them. Let me destroy you, not God. God, in His mercy, grabs them by the arms and pulls them out of the city. Not fun. But here's the thing. God is more interested in saving our souls than saving our pride and our feelings. There are people out there that say, well, God would never do anything that's against my own will. Wrong. When God loves you enough, and you are His child, you are His son, you are His daughter, He will sometimes hurt you in order to bring you out of your own sin. He loves you too much to leave it to your own will. You don't do it to your children, God doesn't do it to His. Your child standing in the middle of the street and there's a car barreling down on him or her. What do? The same thing the angels did, don't you? You grab them by the hand. It doesn't matter how much you pull them. It doesn't matter if you yank the arm out of that socket. You are getting them out of the way of that car because that car will kill them. And they may cry. They may not understand. They may accuse you of being unloving. They may even accuse you of going against their will and imposing your will on theirs. You told them to come out of that street. Get out of the street! Get on the sidewalk! Come on, you're going to get hit by a car. Car's coming. What do? Yank them. You will do what they are going to do. Now, it's not pleasant for them. It would have been much better if they had done themselves, right? I love what John Wooden says. John Wooden says, discipline yourself so that no one else has to. And that is for those who are, let's just call them pre-children, right? Those who are not yet saved but are the elect, and He will pull them out. And for those that who are His children, who have already been adopted into, who have already come to know Christ. He does it both. Go with me to Hebrews chapter 12. 5 through 11. And have you forgotten? Hebrews 12, 5 through 11. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who discipline us and respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? They discipline us for a short time as it seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Out of love, God disciplines. That is the gospel. That's the good news of Christ. And sometimes that's by yanking the arm. Well, at other times it is by public humiliation, and still at other times it is by personal loss, and there are other ways as well. And it hurts, and sometimes it's so sickening and painful, sickening to the stomach at times. No one likes to be disciplined. No one wants to go through it. But the fruit fruit of righteousness is grown in the soul of discipline. And why do I say that this is the gospel? Because only by the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ is it possible. The writer of Hebrews in chapter 2 tells us that Jesus came, lived, and was under the law, and died and rose again for the sole, well, not for the sole purpose, but for the purpose of bringing many sons to glory. And here we see that on that journey to glory, we as sons will be disciplined. That we are not disciplined. If we are not disciplined, that means that we are not sons. We are not bound for glory. But Jesus died and rose again. The gospel of Christ is to yank us out of our sins so that we are going to receive the glory he has in store for us. It's the gospel. Lot didn't have to be dragged out of the city. He could have gone willingly. He could have just walked out on his own. But he didn't. He lingered. 2 Peter chapter 2. Verse 7. If he, not God, if he rescued righteous Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, whereas that righteous man lived among them day after day, he was tormenting his righteous soul over their lawless deeds that he saw and heard. And the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment. He knows how to rescue you. He knows exactly what you need in order to be rescued. There are days when you will be rescued by God's gentle hand. There will be days when you are yanked out of your sin. But it behooves all of us. Do not linger. Discipline yourself, and others won't have to. And I would say that includes God. There are some here that need to get things right. You've lingered far too long. Kind of like a little child at the dinner table with his fork playing around with the peas, lingering because they don't want to deal with the matter. Maybe if we spread them out a little bit, maybe if they look like they're few and far between, maybe nobody will notice, nobody will say anything, nobody will see it, and we won't have to deal with it. And so we just linger and spread. It's time to deal. It's time to stop lingering. It's time to stop waiting. You know what it is in your life that needs to be done. There's something probably at the point in time that God placed his thumb on in your heart and said, that's it. And I do not remember the thought to do with it. You know what it is. God knows it. Deal with it. Do not. Three takeaways in the day. One, God's warnings are given by grace and given as a promise. He doesn't have to warn us. He didn't have to give us his word. He did so out of his grace. And he's doing so as a promise. Before the angels, like I said, headed to Sodom, they talked to Abraham. God talked to Abraham and said what he was going to do. And Abraham sought to deal with God. Well, God, if there's 50, will you destroy Sodom? 45? 40? 30? 20? How about if there's just 10, God? And all the while, God says, okay, I'm not destroy. If there's 10 righteous that can be found there, God would save the entire city. Now, God didn't save the entire city, but the ones that he found righteous, he pulled out. First by warning, and then by preaching. Number 2, if we choose to wait, we put ourselves in peril. One of the illustrations that I remember my dad telling struck me, and I think I've told it maybe before. It's a story of a man who raised a lion as a pet from the time that it was a cub. And he was there, he's grown up now, right? He's had it for years. He was there sitting in his den with a friend of his. They were sitting there talking by a fire. He was petting his pet lion as they're talking, and pretty soon the lion begins to just lick his hand, the hand of his master. Before long, the man, his friend, gets up, grabs the rifle from above the mantle, loads the rifle, points it at the lion, and shoots the lion dead. Outraged, the man jumps up and says, "What are you doing?" Towards the man and said, "Look at your hand." The lion had rubbed his hand raw, and he was bleeding. The man noticed the lion licking the blood and see the look in his face that he had gotten a taste for blood, and he would look more. Before the lion could strike, the man killed him dead. We don't make a pet of our sin. Kill sin without delay. Number 3, God loves you too much to leave you in your sin. Know that no true child of God will be left in your sin, but will be disciplined if he will not discipline himself. So heed the warning and do not